Hello, my name is Sutherland, and I am the author of the Jamie Poole Books series. I'm going to be reading to you from the Isle of Osiris, which is the first book in the series. And if you're unfamiliar with Jamie Poole, the series is multi-genre. It includes historical fiction, science fiction, mythology, predominantly Egyptian mythology, Celtic mythology, Norse mythology. There's time travel. There's a lot of magic and mystery in the series. I would compare it to Outlander meets Lord of the Rings, but where we have fewer men in kilts, I make up for it with a lot more monsters. So I'm going to begin with this book and kind of introduce you to where the series began, as we are getting ready to do a launch with some of the later books. So I'm going to begin with Chapter 1 from the Isle of Osiris. And this takes place in the city of Bozeman, Montana, which is a real place. And it is written from Jamie's point of view, so it is in first person, and this is her speaking as if she is confiding into a diary, some things that have happened to her in her life. So it begins. Let's take a trip back in time, not literally, just as a mind exercise. Not everyone can travel in time. I can't presume that you can, but I want to go back to where it all began. I want you to experience what I experienced, the sights and sounds, the smells, every detail as if you were there. It's important to me. I'm leaving this diary as a testament to what I've done. I'd also like you to understand what motivated my choices. Perhaps what I did was unconventional, but sometimes it's necessary to take that leap of faith and trust you're making the right choice, even if, in the moment, it might feel misguided. You must trust that when you land, it will be on solid ground instead of into an abyss, which isn't amusing, trust me. So here we are at the beginning of a blank diary, clean white pages, pregnant with possibility. I imagine the stage is set and the play is about to begin. Do you hear the applause? The restless audience is out of sight on the other side of the curtain. What do you suppose they expect? Have they any idea? I fidget with the pen. I admit I have a bit of stage fright. I'm no actress. I'm nobody special, and yet here I am, center stage. Raise curtain. I touch pen to paper and write the first sentence, permanently staining the vast expanse of white. I resurrected a druidess. We're past the part where I introduce myself. I scribble further. In my defense, that was an accident. There, I said it. But that wasn't really the beginning. I should scratch that out. Scratch out. I resurrected a druidess. I feel inclined to add that I had help. Not that this in any way spares me any of the responsibility. I bear full responsibility. But the diary remains blank despite this abrupt admittance. It sits patiently, awaiting a full confession. I must give it what it demands. It is this. Is this what my audience expects when they purchase their ticket? I must do this justice. I rest my hand on my chin, thinking. It's too soon to speak of the druidess. I haven't mentioned Lumen. Incidentally, Lumen is up there now on the ceiling. Lumen is the otherworldly sword or the alabaster statue, or even about finding my dad. How could I forget? The events surrounding these objects led my dad and me to the druidess. I stand stiffly and can't see past the stage lights. Just as well. The audience might strike me dumb. I wish I had a cup of tea with lemon. Perhaps that would soothe my nerves. Perhaps I need something stronger. I admit I'm rewriting with this diary before it's placed in its final hiding place. I used to keep it under my mattress. Rookie mistake. I found the perfect spot, as you know. When I finish, I'll take it there immediately. I know a secret way in. No one can know. Initially, when I'd written this, I'd grabbed my first notebook I could find at the corner drugstore. Back then it had been important not to forget a single detail. My mind was reeling. It had all just happened. It was fresh and new and overwhelming. Hastily, I scribbled into the night. My woeful penmanship was the least of the problems with that notebook. I regard the line I just scratched out in this new diary and cringe. It's not off to a good start. This time I want to do better. The years haven't been kind to the first notebook. It's battered and beaten, perhaps an extension of my own condition. It's faded here, stained there, torn everywhere. This kind of notebook doesn't stand up to time. Now, having a bit of spare time, I bought a new leather-bound book with gold-trimmed pages and am copying over each detail, mindful of my penmanship. I find I must make some adjustments now that I'm older. I know what has happened since. I know the ending. But this is the beginning. I remind myself. I can't begin with the Druidess. I rewind my thoughts to the summer before her resurrection. That's when it all began. When everything changed, just before my 13th birthday. I know everyone says that's the year everything changes. Older people say ridiculous things to a kid who's turning 13. Just think, in 5 years you'll get to vote, or in 8 years you'll get to drink. Seriously? If there's one thing I've learned, time isn't linear. Any 13-year-old can tell you that. 5, 8 years from where they're standing seems an eternity. You just want to get past the embarrassing skin blemishes, the awkward body changes, the hair sprouting in funny places, and all the awkwardness of the first kiss and the first date. You probably don't even want that first date. Well, you might, but that sends you into a tizzy of nervousness about bad breath, and, well, you get the idea. Back then, I had hopes and dreams. Dating the right guy wasn't one of them. I wanted to see the world. I had no idea, no plan on how I could make that happen. It was simply a dream hanging up there somewhere in space. Undefined, blank. Like this paper, minus the line I scratched out. I'm doing more thinking and not enough writing. I shift my chair. My foot has gone to sleep. I grew up in Alexandria, Indiana. It's a great place to be from, not a great place to be if you have the desires I had. The sign coming into town reads, Alexandria, small town USA. It could have read, Alexandria, sleepy town USA. Just as accurate. Ellick, the locals call it, is a farming community where everyone knows everyone, and pretty much everyone is related. Why did they name it Alexandria and strip it down to Ellick? It doesn't sound like the same word. Why not Alex or something closer to the original pronunciation? Did the founding fathers have hopes of grandeur? I saw no grandeur. Not that there's something wrong with that, but I wasn't one of those people who could embrace a mundane life day in and day out. I wanted more. Ellick summed up my motivation, my need for more. In Ellick, every day was the same. Time didn't exist in that town. Perhaps if I hadn't been restless, none of this would have happened. But somehow I doubt that. Everything happens as it should. When my cousin Margie turned 18, she graduated from high school and almost immediately married her high school sweetheart. She levitated with joy as she flaunted an engagement ring. She was tall and darkly beautiful. She was pretty enough to be a model, clever enough to be an actress, but she was marrying a farmer's daughter. She would become a farmer's wife. She couldn't imagine a better future because he was her sweetheart. Meanwhile, all I could think of was, I can't wait to get out of this town where nothing ever happens. I was happy for her, ecstatic even. But my dreams were different. Color me weird. I dreamed of pyramids, pharaohs, mummies, and dinosaurs. I wanted to be part of uncovering those ancient things in faraway places. As I said, color me weird. Despite where I grew up, my education had been supplemented by science books meant for scientists and not for kids, and this, if nothing else, had planted the seeds of what was to come. I'm still unsure what to write. I have to write something. The audience is waiting, and I'm standing center stage like an idiot who has forgotten her lines. I didn't ask for this life. It was thrust upon me. And yet, didn't I embrace it? Of course I did. Margie knew a siren called my name, beckoning me to leave. I suspect she knew before I did, even if she teased me about it, instead of speaking seriously. Kids are never serious. Did it bother her when I left? I don't think I asked. How insensitive. I'm sure she didn't want me to leave. We'd grown up as close as sisters. When you're young and you have ideas that sacrifice you'll make if you want to take that leap of faith. And while I still love Margie deeply, I can't remember when I saw her last. I can't remember when I called her last, or when she called me. Sacrifices. I didn't realize how many were necessary for the life I've chosen to live. God, I miss her and my mom, and with determination I began to write. When I was 12, I was visited by the dead and by those who come from the other world, a place set apart from our world by a tightly knit veil. Is this the right place to start? I'm committed now. I feel inclined to explain what the other world is. Like time travel, I can't presume you know. I suppose no one can until they've been there. But then you did find this story and this diary, so I suspect you have an idea. I continue writing. These worlds coexist, but that veil is in place for good reason. The planes must remain separated, except at specific times of the year when the veil thins temporarily. Celts refer to these times as Samhain and Beltane. If the veil thins or is ripped at the wrong time, things, beings, collide that should never meet, and that's never good. Lumen was bestowed upon me to help the dead and protect our world from the wrong things crossing from the other world. I lean back and study my words. That feels right, even if Lumen didn't come into my possession immediately. When I first saw it, it knew me, but I didn't know it. I scribble further, less concerned about perfect penmanship. Growing up is hard enough. When you start hearing voices, believe me, it gets crazy. Either that or you're going crazy. Finding Dad, who had his own secrets, only increased challenges for me to come into myself. His mystery cast a shadow on who I was and where I came from. I can say that now that I'm an adult, looking back, I know it all began with the defining moment of trying to find Dad. I had a purpose. I had a calling. Voices of the dead begged me to help. What could I do? Grow up and take control. Sounds easier than it is. There might have been other options, but not for the daughter of Brett Poole, the most stubborn man I knew. Dare I admit I wasn't so different? Cue the music. I still have stage fright, but I think my stomach is settling a little. I glance out the window to the left. The sun is starting to set behind the mountains. It's about time. The words flow freely from the pen now. And that concludes the first chapter of the Isle of Osiris. I invite you to visit my website, jamiepoolebooks.com, to find out more information, or feel free to drop me a line. My email address is jamiepoolebooks@gmail.com. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed this video.